Let's kick it off with a review. What did we learn yesterday? Anyone? We started passing
Oh,
props
sorry.
because that wasn't confusing at all. Go ahead, Rain.
I had a light bulb moment with components and how they are variables that can be named anything that will contain stuff or information to be exported onto a main JavaScript file and then shown there. That was a light bulb moment for me.
Love it. Yeah, we saw that export import, right? And components are kind of weird because they're variables, they're functions, they return, they have HTML, they have JavaScript in them, they can be reused. They get called through HTML, but they actually are JavaScript. It's like, what is a component, right? There's so much that goes into it. Components can have their own state, they can have their own props. It's like a vocabulary nightmare, right? Like it's so many different things that it can be, but then we also start seeing the power of it, right? And like Kenny said, it's for reusing code and being able to say, okay, here's this little chunk of code, and if I change this one chunk of code, all of the things are going to update, and I don't need to go change my nav bar on 40 different pages, or I don't need to change the style. All I need to do is focus on this one file or these couple lines of code, and everything's going to update for us. So really, really powerful, right? And then being able to say, hey, we've got the parent, we've got the children, and there's some information up at the parent. And if we pass that information down through the props, kind of like parameters in a function, all of that information will update as well. Palash mentioned we saw two different syntaxes for props, right? We can say, hey, props is an object, and then we're going to use dot notation to pull information out of those props. Or we can use those curly braces and do what we call object destructuring, where we can identify the keys that are in those props at the child level, and then be able to use those props directly in the content or wherever we need it. We saw putting functions and ultimately their functional components, right, into different files, and then being able to separate that out. So we're going to keep on going with chat tonight. We are going to keep on working on some functionality there. We got our input set up and we've got our messages set up with the state, but we haven't quite gotten to the point of making that text input work. So that is where we are going to start tonight, is we're going to get that to work. And then we're going to start looking into, all right, well, what additional features do we need? How do we get timestamps to show up? How can we pass that information around? How do we, we're going to go through the process of something called hoisting state. So we're going to go through all of that tonight. Rain mentioned an important requirement of React. When we return something from a React component, we can only return one div. So if we need two divs to be in our component, what we end up doing is putting it in one div and then putting the two divs we need inside of that. So that is an important distinction and restriction of React. Tara, glad that you're seeing the repetitiveness of it, right? We've got one more project to do after this where we're going to start the React project from scratch and go through the file setup and all of that stuff. We also saw, I think, Bootstrap for the first time in React code, where we went into that public index.html and we pulled out we grabbed the link tag from the Bootstrap documentation and then put that in the head of public index.html. Yep, seeing new files, using the functions, using import export, being able to import it and then call that function, seeing how it's all connecting together, all good. Does anyone have any questions from yesterday that we'd like to clarify? We're actually going to start by reading through our code. putting in some numbered comments just as a refresher of where we left off, and then we'll dive back into new functions and features from there. But any questions so far? Anything pop up between last night and tonight?
Your voice sounds like you're enjoying California. Were you at a festival last night?
I was not. My niece is sleeping in the room next door, so I am trying to lower my voice, which is not very natural for me. So that's probably why I sound a little different.
I'll behave.
But the I just got back from Mirror Woods, which is like a redwood forest north of SF. So that was pretty cool to check out this morning. All right, let's go ahead and dive on in. Now we are going to start a little differently, right? We aren't going to create React app tonight because we're not starting from scratch. So normally what we would be doing is just popping open this code and starting to work on it, right? And in the workplace, we would be doing that as well. But because we are keeping track kind of and seeing the progress as the project continues to grow, we want to work on this a little differently. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head to my desktop, to my code, to my week 14, to my day 2, to my chat. And what we're going to do is click on node modules and delete that folder. So if you single click on it, you can hit Command Delete on your keyboard, or you can right click on it and hit Move to Trash. Either way, that is going to make the duplication a little bit easier for us. So I'm going to go back out to my day 2 level, and I'm going to go ahead and say duplicate. And you'll see that goes through pretty quickly because we deleted our node modules. So I'm going to go ahead and rename that as day 3 and go ahead and drag that into my VS Code. Don't worry, my volume will not stay at this level for long. I'm going to get excited about React and will not be able to contain myself. All right, from here, because I opened day 3, I have to be really careful. Day 3 is open and not just the chat folder, which is fine. When I open the terminal, I have to right click on chat and say open an integrated terminal, because it's really important if I run pwd down here to see that I'm not just in the day 3 folder, I'm also down in that chat folder. So again, I'm right clicking on chat or really any of the files inside of chat and open an integrated terminal from there. If you drag chat in, that's totally fine. When you open an integrated terminal, it will automatically open you into that. What won't work, and I'm just going to show you, you don't follow me on this, but if we didn't open it from over here and we just went terminal new window, you'll see I'm in day 3 up here. Again, don't follow me here. But if I run npm start, I'm going to get some error message that says like, I can't find a package.json in day 3. It's confused because we could have 19 different React projects in that day 3 folder. And it's like, I don't know how to start a project because there's no package.json. But I can fix that by CDing down into chat. And now when I do my npm start, it's going to tell me command not found. And this is where, if you were getting command not found, now you can resume following me here. We don't have our node modules over here because we deleted them and now we need to reinstall them. So all I'm going to do is run the command npm install. And we don't need to install when we're using Create React App. It does that for us. Now, once we've got all those packages reinstalled, we can run our npm start. Yes, follow me now. You want to do your npm install, and once the install is done, you want to do an npm start, and that should bring you back to your messages over here. I'm going to go ahead and do a live share so you guys have that. Go ahead and paste that in, and then once you get your messages back up, we should be good to go. gonna be
Max,
working. Yes.
and excuse me, I got back into town at 2 AM and I just got off work.
Oh,
So we got rid of the node modules for day 3. We only have the package lock JSON, package JSON, the README, and the get more under the SRC in public. No, it's still there.
SRC should have like message input, messages list, all of that stuff. So what we're doing is we're only deleting node modules from day 2 chat. So
Just
you'll notice node modules isn't here. Then we duplicate that folder, and in day 3, we'll rename the duplicated folder from day 2 copy to day 3, pop that open, and inside of there, once we run npm install in the terminal again, it will bring our node modules back.
understood. Okay, thank you.
And then after the install, we run npm start. Everything should be happy and you should be good to go. And I am realizing I don't think I pushed the code from yesterday up to GitHub. I was bad. Totally my bad. So let me go ahead and push that up now. So that's there. Okay, that should be uploaded and good to go. Anyone else have questions or need help before we dive in?
I'm
Okay.
getting an error message. Of course I am. My cat just ran across my keyboard.
What's your error message?
Error in app.js.
Okay, that is a problem with your code. Go ahead and share your screen. Let's take a look. Let's figure out what your cat typed in for you.
Shit, she is.
Ooh.
Yeah.
After line 5, you have export and import. Just take that whole everything out after that semicolon.
What did she do? Okay.
She thought she knew React better than you
She
did.
did too. She's like, I'm gonna mess this bitch up.
Anyone else need help?
Oh, I'm getting an error. It's saying this is related to npm not being able to find a file. A complete log of this can be found. This run can be found in, and it gives me my folders.
So run pwd. Does
Okay.
it give you a file path that you're inside of chat, or is it just in the day 3 folder?
Oh, just in a day 3 folder.
So you're going to type in cd space chat and hit enter, and then try your npm install and start again. 2 separate commands, npm install and then npm start.
How do we go live again?
Yes, there it goes. Thank you.
npm space start in the terminal.
Thank
you. No problem.
So that worked for me, but what I did prior to, I followed the steps that we originally did, and my window popped up, but I wasn't sure if it was from today or me leaving it open yesterday. So I closed it, and then I couldn't get it to pop open again. So I started all over again.
Okay, so that's a good question. Let me touch on that. So over here, if I close this window and I'm like, now what? How do I get back to it? Well, there are 2 ways of doing it. One, I can just open a window and go to localhost :3000, and that should bring it up. But over here, I could just close out of this entire terminal window, right? And if I close out of it, it should fix it. Or if this is running, I can hit Control C and that will stop it. Control, not Command. Now, if I come over here and refresh, because I stopped it, it's not running. And if I go back to this terminal, I can run npm start again, and it will fire it up and open that window back up for me.
Okay, thank you. I was hitting Command C and I was like, it's not working. Okay.
Yeah, I have no idea why it's control. I guess because you can copy things from the terminal, which is why they didn't want to override Command C, but yeah, Control C in the terminal for some reason. Kind of confusing.
Max, I did my npm install npm start. I have my
Mhm.
folder corrected without the node module, but I'm getting an error message in my terminal.
Is it related if you run PWD, are you inside of chat or just inside of day 3?
I am week 14, day 3.
Okay, so you're not in the chat folder in your terminal, and that's why it doesn't know how to do anything in React. So you have
Oh,
to
I know what I did
cd
wrong.
space chat, enter, and then you can run install and start.
You're absolutely correct. I didn't include that. Oh, okay,
Cool.
thank you.
And Jen, you're probably getting warnings out the wazoo right now. That's okay. I've got warning. Oh, I thought I would have warnings. We will go through warnings at the end of class tonight and not only explain them, but then also go through and solve them. Goggin, what's up?
So I wasn't here yesterday.
Okay.
Catch up.
So what you can do to kind of leapfrog yourself, I will drop a link in the chat. Oh, never mind, scratch that. I thought there was an easier way to do that. What I will do instead is make a zip file for you and put that in the Zoom chat, and you can use that zip to get started.
All right, thank you. Well, I'm just gonna have to do npm install. That's it.
Yes. After you unzip it, yeah, just an npm install.
Thank you.
Just make sure you're CD'd into the right directory.
Okay.
That goes there.
I'm trying to I try to make it like the chat app with the npx React install, but I don't have the files, so that's why it's not working. Okay,
That should be in the chat if you need help.
thank you.
No, I'm back to not having errors, Jen. It was just because I was making the zip. Although I'm really surprised I don't have errors because I'm pretty sure like I'm not using the set messages, which should be a warning. So we will get to errors. Don't worry. We'll save them for the end. Right now they're just warnings. Plush.
My that go live, the browser window started showing yours.
Oh,
Yeah. So how do I like
I
restart?
just fixed it. Just refresh the page and it should go back to yours. Sorry, my bad.
I actually closed it.
Okay, so just open a new tab and or new window and go localhost 3000, and that should bring it back up.
Thank you.
All right, Max.
Yep.
Was that Max?
Yep, go ahead.
Oh, so yeah, I'm in the folder, in the chat folder, but it's saying error message. You cannot find index.js.
Okay, it sounds like a good error. Go ahead, share your screen. Let's take a look.
Okie dokie.
No, this is annoying for everyone to sit through, but these are all error messages that you are very likely to get on your own. And because of that, it is important to pay attention. Rain, I'm not quite sure how you duplicated your day 2 folder to get to day 3, but your entire SRC folder is missing, and that's where all of our code is supposed to be.
Okay, let me
So,
fix it. I think I
okay. Yeah, I would just delete your day 3 entirely and try and reduplicate day 2.
okay.
And then just raise your hand if it's still not working after, or I'll just let you go through it. That's fine.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Just raise your hand if you need help again. Anyone else need help?
Mine worked.
Your
Posted
it
blue
did
and-
work.
Yeah, like iMessages system.
Good,
What a beautiful day. It ain't over.
good.
Remember the amount the kid was over here?
Oh my God.
Anyone else need help? Okay, see if we can do a 5-minute review here. So app.js, we have this thing called messages. Messages are coming from state. Why do we need them in state? Why is this not just a regular variable? Well, because we want to be able to set these messages and have them automatically update in our interface. The problem is that messages list isn't the only component that needs access to these messages. We also need to be able to update these messages from the message input. We haven't done that yet, and that's okay. But what we did do is put messages up at the app level. Because it's up in the app, it's in the parent component, we need to send these messages into the messages list via a prop. So messages is not only a state variable, because we can see it right here, it is also a prop right here. Because of that, when we open up messages list, we can see the messages coming in as a prop. So this messages lines up with this messages right here. Now we did this in about 30 seconds as an all-out blitz on coding. This is pretty much the peak of React. We've got all kinds of different things going on in here. We take messages. App is kind of like index.html. App is like our starting point. And app is a component itself as well, because it's in a function that's returning out some HTML. Okay. Interrupt me with questions, please. That's the best way to learn. Whether you mute or throw them in chat, either is totally fine. Okay, so from messages list, we throw out this div ID, and then we map over messages. Wait a second, where have we seen map before? What does map do? Map is a loop, right? So it's like a for of loop. But why can we map over it? Because messages is just an array. Even though it's in state, state is just a wrapper around data types in JavaScript. Because of that, we can just loop over the items in the array. Well, why do we want to do that? Because for every message that shows up, we want to return something out. We want either a sent message to show up, which is its own component, or a received message to show up. So how do we do that? We say, hey, loop over all of the messages, and each individual message is going to be an object. To prove that, we can console log out our message here. You don't have to follow me on this if you don't want. We can go look in our console, and we see all of these different objects. Well, if I pop open one of these objects, we can see content hello out there. And if I open up another one, I can see the content and that the fact that sent was false. So what we are seeing, this hello from the other side, is showing up here. So we are taking it from app, we are taking that whole array and passing it into messages list. From messages list, we are receiving that prop, we are mapping over it, which is giving us access to each individual message. Now, what do we want to show up for each message? Well, first, we want to look to see if that message is sent. So what we're doing is we're looking at this sent true or false, right? And here we're saying sent is true. So because if we don't, this is shorthand, we're basically saying this here, but if we leave out this triple equals, it is assuming that what we're checking for is true. So this is just a little shorthand to avoid having to type out that triple equals true. So if the message is sent, then go render out the sent message. So we take the content and we send it down into sent message. Well, if we take a look at sent message, we are expecting the props to come through. So because our content is being sent in through the message, we are able to use props.content because we're sending that content in through down here. So we take that sent message, and whenever we return this sent message, this entire div is going to show up. Prove it. Well, if I come over here, I can go to my elements and I can click on this little inspect option and click on this one up here. And we can see there's a messages with a row. All right, where's this div ID messages? Here is my div ID messages. What is showing up in there? Well, I've got 2 rows. Where are those rows coming from? One of the rows is right here, and the other row is right here. Okay, well, this is a sent message. So that sent message should have a call to and a text end. And sure enough, we've got our call to and our text end right here. But instead of that span message text being filled with props.content, instead what we're going to see is that span message text with the hello out there, because this is in our curly braces. So the curly braces are like that template literal. They're saying pause. Don't actually put the words props.content in there. Go to the props from up here and access the content. Because the content is showing up, I am pulling that content from my loop, which is going over all the messages, which is coming from the prop, which is coming from the parent, which is coming from the state, which is this big array up here. Hopefully that wasn't more confusing than it was helpful. Did any questions pop up as we went through that flow? Okay. We
I
are
have-
actually,
Sorry.
oh yeah, go for it.
Can we just go over real quick? How come we only use content for the received messages and props.content for the sent messages?
2 different ways of sending that in. Either way is the exact same at the parent level. At the parent level, we always say the name of the prop equals and then the value of the prop. But at the child level, we have 2 different ways of accessing props. In sent message, we can put props up here without curly braces and use dot notation. Or we can avoid dot notation if we put the curly braces up here and put the name of the prop instead of the word props itself. And because these curly braces are up here, it is destructuring, it is pulling the keys of the props out of the props object and giving us access to it directly. So the very short answer is, well, because we put it in curly braces up here, we can use the names of the props directly, but you will see both syntaxes, either using it by destructuring it, by putting the names of the props directly in, or if you don't use the curly braces, you can just call it props and then access it with dot notation down here.
Okay. Thank you.
That answer your question? Cool. I forgot to charge my microphone last night, so if suddenly you can't hear me, try not to cheer too loudly and just let me know and I'll switch it over to my Mac. If I can last another 55 minutes, I'll give it a boost charge. All right, we good? Any questions on this? Okay, we're actually going to answer a long-standing question that Rain has had, which is, nope. Sometimes when you go into the console, it will tell you, hey, there are React dev tools, and those React dev tools are going to give you more than Chrome can give you itself, because they're going to show you how things are working under the hood. So if we look at elements and we're looking at this, we can't really tell that this row is its own component, right? We're seeing what the browser sees, what's actually running, but we don't see the components. We can't see the props. We can't really see how it's working under the hood. So what we are going to do is do a search for React Dev Tools. And I would encourage you guys to follow along with me here. And that is going to take us to the React developer tools. And I'm going to go ahead and remove this from my Chrome. You will have a add to Chrome button. So go ahead and hit add to Chrome. And it says it can read and change data on all your websites. Don't worry, this is one, I mean, it's got 4 million active users. I'm not worried about this, causing any havoc anywhere, but go ahead and hit add extension on that. If you are not in Chrome, you definitely need to switch yourself to Chrome. If you don't have Chrome, switch over to Chrome. Go ahead and install that. I put the link in the chat. And now it says React DevTools have been added to Chrome. Manage your extensions by clicking extensions in the menu window. We shouldn't have to worry about that. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch back to React app. I am going to refresh the page, Command R. And then if we look under here, everything looks to be the same up here. But if I click on these 3 dots, you now have the React logo, and you have these 2 things called components and profiler. You won't have Meteor. That's another dev tool that I have installed. But components is what we want to get into. Profiler is so powerful that I don't even know how to use it. That you can dig into way down the road if you get into React of, hey, why is my React component loading so slow? Or what is slowing down my application? How can I optimize it? How can I speed it up? That's what the profiler is for. But we are going to head to components. Did anyone not get components after installing it? Jen, you want to share your screen because I probably missed a step.
I didn't get it either.
Okay, Jen, share your screen and we will figure out why you didn't get it.
I think, it's on there, like I did all the steps and everything, it's just not.
Okay, let me pull this out just a little bit. It will only show up in a React app, but even that isn't working. So let's try this. I don't know if this is going to work. Stand by before you follow. Okay, the trick, go ahead and close out of your localhost 3000. Now everyone can follow this. Close your localhost 3000, open a new tab, reopen localhost 3000. And once you go into inspect, it will show you the components here. If anyone else, after closing the tab and reopening it, can't see components, go ahead and raise your hand and I can give you some help. Thank you, Jen, for being the guinea pig. Taylor just wants everyone to have the live share link. It is really a bad system that you can't see messages from before you join the meeting. I thought they were going to fix it, and I don't think Zoom has yet. Anyone not get the components? Okay, so let's take a look at what's going on in these components. Corwin, do you need help?
Yeah, I guess so. I'm
Sure,
still,
let's take a look.
yeah, I'm still pulling those 2 warnings. I don't know if I just missed something.
Interesting. Let me request remote. You installed the extension?
Should it say 3002?
If there was something running in the background, that shouldn't cause a problem. Let me just jump in here. I'm gonna just copy this. And reopen it. And then pop it open in here. And now they are hiding right there. So just had to close it and reopen it. Anyone else need help? Okay, now these dev tools are not going to be anything earth-shattering now, but they are good to have installed. The reason is you can kind of see the components as we're building them from the perspective of the browser. So let me go ahead and refresh this because now mine's throwing a fit and not actually working. Oh, come on. Here we go. Okay, so now we're looking at this and I'm like, wait a second, where my app has a header, a messages list, and a message input. And if I go take a look at my app.js, I can see my header, my message list, and my message input. Now, the browser has no idea that this component even exists. The browser just knows that it is supposed to show this form and there's supposed to be a div inside of it. But what's kind of cool is that if we click on messages list in our components, we can see the props over there. And the props have our messages. And if we open up those messages, we can see those objects right in there. And what's kind of cool is we can even delete out one of those objects in the array and see that message disappear. And we can dive into this and see, hey, this is showing the received message. What content is the received message getting? It is getting that content via a prop. And I don't know, it will even let us edit this. So I'm changing this prop for the sake of it. If I go ahead and hit enter, we can see it change, and we can even see, hey, received message is rendered by messages list. Messages list is showing up from app. Why does app show up? Because we are using this function called create root, which create React app set up for us. So this is really cool to just see. If we go to app all the way up at the top, we can even see that state is being used. And if we open up the state, we can see that information up there. So this is just a debugging tool that can sometimes be helpful when you get into a very complex app and you're like, all right, I wired everything up, everything should be working, but I'm using state and passing that via a prop that's getting passed down into another child component that's using a map. And because of that map, it's returning out another component. And at some point it broke somewhere. The dev tools are helpful to be able to go in different prop levels and be able to see kind of, hey, is that information getting passed down all the way, or the right component showing the way that they should be. Taylor, I don't have sent message in mind because I played around with the state over here. If I refresh the whole page, it will go back to the way it was in my code. And then you can see I've got my sent message and my received message. Danny, what's up?
So when I look at, in the components, it just says it's timed out while inspecting, and I just clicked on it, so I don't understand. Can I just share my screen to show you what it's doing?
You sure can.
So. Oop.
Yeah, Jen, it's less about like parsing out hook names and more about being able to see your code as it's running. So that it's kind of like inspect, but inspect for React mode, if that makes sense at all. Try the retry button to the by that error message. That's kind of funky.
Yep,
Okay,
and I did it again.
let's try something different. Sometimes We tell it that it needs to time itself out, and we close and we reopen it. And then we inspect and go back to it. And now you're back in business.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Max.
No problem. Anyone else need help? This isn't anything that we're going to use going forward. It is a helpful tool. When your React isn't working, it can be really helpful to debug using those dev tools. But we're showing you and showing you how kind of that works. And hopefully, Rain, that makes you happy that we finally got around to the question, because it was a worthwhile one. Now that we're seeing props and the data getting passed around, that tool becomes a little bit more valuable.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions?
So to make this, like, if we type something in there, it doesn't show up. Like, I don't know if you guys did that already.
Not yet.
Okay.
Nope. That's what we're going to get started on right now, unless anyone has any other questions. Okay, so we got our messages showing up. We know that we can go into VS Code. We know that we can go to our app.js and we can add in another message up here, right? We can say content day 2 of chat app and say sent is true. And if I save that, we see it show up right here. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. That's working. How do we make it so in our message input, when we in message input.js, when we send a message, it shows up in my map of the messages in messages list? Well, take a step back. In app.js, this is where both the message input and messages list can share data because it's up at the parent level. But we know something special about state. In state, we know that we can't just say messages equals this new thing. We have to use a special function. How do we update state? We use set messages, right? But we can't just use set messages down in message input because we need to send it down into that child component. So the way we do that is with a prop. We say set messages equals set messages. In our set messages, because we're sending it down as a prop, we need to go to message input. So I command clicked on that component, or you can open the file manually, either is fine. From message input, I need to tell it, hey, you're going to go get some props. And once we take those props, what I would like to do is props.set messages. And what do I want to set messages to? Well, we know messages is an array. We know that the array has an object in it. That object is going to use some content. And that content is going to come from where? Well, where do I want that content to come from? Whatever is typed into this input. What is typed into this input? This is the mindfuckery of React. This value. Where does this value come from? It comes from state. So whenever I type a letter, I'm updating the inputted text by calling set inputted text right here. That means that because inputted text is constantly getting updated, that content can be inputted text. And because I'm the one sending the message, I can say sent is true. Jen, I'm going to come to you in 1 second. So I come back over here. I refresh the page. I get everything out that I wanted, right? And I come down here and say, I sent a message. And I hit send on that, and all my other messages disappear. Like, okay, that's less than ideal. But let's run through this flow, and then Jen, I'll answer your question. What's happening here? We're up at app.js. App.js has this in state. It's like, all right, there are a couple messages in here. It's an array. I'm all good. I come down to this messages list and I send the messages down via a prop. In messages list, we go through and we map over all of those to show up to loop through all of the sent messages and the received messages. Then the app is done. Now I come back to my message input and I start typing in a bunch of letters. That on change updates inputted text and stores it right in here. That inputted text just stays in state until we send the message. When we send the message, we go get set messages from the prop set messages here, and we pass in a new object with the inputted text as the content. Because of that, this set messages is actually the set messages from up here. The set messages updates these messages. Because these messages have changed, the messages here are passed into the messages list right here. The messages list now goes, whoa, these messages prop have changed. I need to map over them again and show up the messages from here. We'll take care of the clearing option in 1 second, but this is what should be happening. You can refresh your page. You can type in some message. You can hit the send button and all the other messages will disappear, but some message will show up. Allie, raise your hand. I will come to you next. And Jen, go for it.
You lost me when you're putting in prop set messages because every time I put props in there with a period, it pops up payment response and I can't get past that.
Curious screen, let's take a look. Payment will be required though.
Okay. It's like literally.
So on line 3, throw
I
your
put
take
It's-
that out.
I just want to punch it.
On line 3 in your parentheses, you need props.
Okay, is that the only reason why it wasn't letting me?
I hope so.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Allie, go ahead.
Okay, I'm just gonna share. I'm not really sure what's
Yeah, go
Cool.
for it.
okay. So let me get this out of here. This is my code.
No, it is not.
This one?
The one that you shared your screen in Zoom
Oh,
is
that's
my
right.
code.
Sorry. Okay. That's okay. Yeah, this one is mine, I believe. Oh,
Yes,
wait.
that one is yours.
I'm sorry, y'all. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is my code right here. And then I don't know why it's doing this. It just
Okay,
wasn't.
so in your message input,
Sorry.
you are missing one thing. So we're looking at messages, right? And messages.map. What are we mapping over? We're mapping over an array, right? And we can only map over it because it is an array. There are multiple objects in that array. But
Okay, I
when
see.
you sent your message, you didn't set messages to a new array, you set it to an object. So what we need to do is say, hey, that object is in an array. Now it will work. And if we say ABC and hit send, you get it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Anyone else need help?
Mine is not working.
Share your screen.
Okay, 1 second.
You are trying to set massages.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Where?
Read your error message. It says props dot set massages is not a function.
So where did I mess up here?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Does that work?
No, you're still spelling. We gotta match stuff up. Let me request remote.
Hold on, I fucked up. I remember. I see it. You
Is
said-
that here? Let's check app.js. That whatever you have, you're not passing the prop here. So we can't just use props down at the children level. We have to pass the prop in at the parent level before we can use it. So that's a good note for everyone. So here we need to say set messages equals the set messages from the state up here. Because we are passing that in at the message input, we can now props.set messages. And when we're over here, come on,
Oh,
it shows up.
thank you.
Who else needs help?
I definitely do. I typed in hello and my whole screen went red.
Share screen. That happens.
My bad. I got on split screen. Give me a second.
Yeah. Say, I love your shirt. Okay, prop set messages is not a function. So I think it's going to be a similar issue to Yagen. Switch me over to your code. Flash, we're going to answer that question next. Okay. So you are properly props.setting messages, but we can't just use set messages unless set messages is passed in from the props. So where do we pass in that prop? Up at app level, we are passing in set messages into a set messages. That should fix your problem. The satisfying stopping of the screen share without any comment.
Thanks.
No problem. Okay, we're going to fix a bug, and then I'm going to answer your question, Kalash, which are kind of two intertwined. So our bug is obviously we don't want all of our messages to disappear when we send a new message. Does anyone have an idea of how we could fix that bug so our messages don't disappear? Well, we're
Yeah,
using. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say use effect, but no.
No, not a use effect. What we're doing is we're setting our messages here, but it's overriding all of the existing messages. So there's something else we need to do. We're going to go back up to the app level, and instead of just sending in the set messages, we're also going to send all of the existing messages. And I'm actually going to do it a little differently here just to show a point. I'm going to call this existing messages and make that equal to messages. I could call it messages here. That wouldn't cause any problems. But I want to show you these messages are lining up with these messages from state. But this prop name is called existing messages. So this prop name needs to line up in my message input. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put all of the existing messages props.existing messages into my set messages and then add the new message in that I'm sending it to. So now I switch back over to my browser. I refresh, I type ABC, I hit send, and my ABC shows up as another message. Anyone need help with that before I answer a question of Palash is a good one? Two steps to that one. Make sure in your app.js, you're sending in the prop existing messages equal to messages. The messages are coming from our state. Here, we're just showing that the prop name doesn't have to match the variable name. So if we call this existing messages here, we can do that as long as we call it existing messages in the child. Okay, don't follow me here. This is a side tangent. Palash said, why can't we just use push? Push is a JavaScript function. We use push to add an item to the end of the array. Why can't we just say, hey, props, messages, push in my new content? Seems like it should work, right? I come over here, I refresh the whole page, I type ABC, I hit send, and error. Oh, you know what? Sorry, there should be props existing messages. Try this again. ABC, I hit send, nothing happens. And I'm like, my push isn't working. Well, it is. If I click back into this input and delete a letter out, it's not going to do what I thought it was going to do. What's happening here is, what does push do? It modifies the existing variable. What do we know about variables in state? We aren't allowed to modify them directly. We have to always use the set function to update them. The push function is updating the variable directly, and it's causing problems. So instead of pushing on to the end of it, what we do instead is this approach here. We say use set, take a copy of the existing data, spread it out into the array, then put this new object in at the end of it. So that's why we can't use push. Push modifies the data directly, and we aren't allowed to modify state data directly in React.
Why did we use the spread operator there?
Because we want to take all the existing items in the array and dump them into the new array, as opposed to taking that entire array and putting it
In another
one giant array and then an object at the end of it. So if we don't do this, if we do it like this instead, again, don't follow me, just showing an example. If I forget that spread operator, what it's going to look like is an array with 4 items in it and then an object after it. And we don't want this in its own array. We just want all of these items to be spread out in the new array. Okay, two bug fixes to fix. One which Jen has already pointed out, which is when we send a new message, they are right on top of each other. Well, how do we think we fix them? Just a little CSS. I'm going to go in and take a look at this. It looks like each row is having its own is right on top of each other. So if I go down to the bottom of that and throw some margin, let's say on the bottom of it, it spreads them out a little bit more, which is what I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head to my app.css and I'm going to say in the messages, find any rows and throw some margin on the bottom of it of 10 px. And save that and come back over. They're spaced out a little bit better and I am good to go on that. Another bug I would like to fix is I just sent the message ABC and my send button is not clearing it out. On your own, I'm going to give you 3 minutes to do this. And at 3:37, we'll keep going. Try and make it so when the send button is sent, the input clears out. Right, so I type something in, and when I hit the send button, not only should it show up here, but this should clear out. All right, how do we make out? All we need to do is in the message input, we're doing all of this heavy lifting already, but we have access to inputted text, and that is hooked up to the input already. So all we need to do after we do the work of setting the messages and updating everything, all we need to do is set the inputted text back to an empty string. Now, when I come over here and I send a new message and hit send, it clears out my input for me. All right, one more visual walkthrough of how all of this is working. I'm going to attempt to try and fit as much on my screen as I can. Any questions so far about any of this? Okay. All right. In our message input, we are keeping track of all of the text that gets typed in with inputted text. And anytime a letter is typed, that set input text is updating. Now, when the send message on submit event runs, we are taking the inputted text and putting it into this big object. We set our sent as true, but then we use this set messages coming from our props. Where is set messages coming from? This set messages is coming into the props that are linked here. This set messages is coming from this set messages. So we're taking the array data all from right here, sending it into set messages and updating our messages here. Because our messages are updated, we use our messages right here. Our messages get sent into the prop messages right here. Because of that, we use those messages, map over each individual message, and it detects that there is a new message to return out here. Now, you guys need more practice on that. It's coming. We are over the hump. There's only one more complicated feature that we need to learn in React called routing. And outside of routing, that's it. You've learned everything you need to know about React. So we're going to do the React blog project tomorrow. We're going to start that tomorrow. We're going to go through all of that. Don't worry, a little bit more practice in React. Got what? 3 more days of React. So we're going to go through all of these concepts again, and then you are on your own. You're going to be out. You're going to be converting your capstone over. You're going to be working on all of that. We will also touch on how do we take existing HTML and move it into React. So we'll touch on that in a minute at the our last day of React after the blog project. All right, a couple things that I want to clean up here. We are breaking some rules. So one rule that we are breaking is if I look in my console and I refresh, it says each child in a list should have a unique key prop. What does that mean? Well, React isn't really happy with us because React keeps track of when it loops over any components. It needs help to keep track of what component it is when it's looping over it. So the way we fix that is we need to give, anytime that we map over something, we need to give the component a property called key. In order to do that, we need a unique ID. And we're kind of in a pickle here because we don't have a unique ID. The content theoretically could be the same across multiple messages. Then that key is no longer unique. Key and IDs are kind of the same realm. They don't exactly mean the same thing, but they kind of do. Well, what we can do is if we don't have an ID, which is usually generated by the database, we can kind of get around that by saying, hey, when we map over it and we get out all the individual messages, also give us the index. Now, the index is generally not a good key to use because theoretically we could delete a message and then all of the indexes would change. So ideally, we don't use index. Ideally, we use an ID generated by the database. But because we don't have a database, we're just going to use the index here. So what we do, because we're mapping over something, whenever we map over something, we're supposed to put the key on that component, and then we are using the index coming from the map as our key. Down the line, down the road, we could change that key to use the ID that the database will generate for us. We do the same on our received message. And now if I head back over to the browser, you'll see I still have this error. I don't though. This is just lingering from a refresh. So if I refresh the page out, you'll see I solved that error.
Did we add that key equals index to just the
Both the sent and the receipt. Okay. Couple more things I want to do. Before I do, Jen asked, why do we have all of these in the console? Well, take a look at where they're coming out. It says messages list JS line 5. So if I head over to my messages list and look at line 5, I've got a console login here that we were using for debugging. I don't need it anymore. So I could delete it, or I can just comment it out. And when I do and refresh the whole page, we still have some suckers left in here. This is messages list line 24. Messages list line 24. I also have a console log there. So I'm going to go ahead and comment that out, refresh. Now my console should be clean. Does
Oh, yeah.
anyone have?
I have
Oh.
like twice as many as you do. It's like doubling them.
Doubling them is normal when we're on local, but if you comment out all the console logs and refresh, they should all go away. At this point, we also should have no warnings, no error messages, and nothing in our terminal hanging out, which I apparently closed. Let me see if I can bring it back up this way. I have in my terminal compiled successfully, Webpack compiled successfully, no warnings. So if you guys have warnings or errors hanging out in either your browser console or your terminal in React in VS Code console, go ahead and raise your hand now. Or if you cannot type in a message, hit send and have it show up here, you can also go ahead and raise your hand. Amberlyn, go for it.
Okay, so I have an error in the console. When we put in those key indexes, everything on my browser went away. So I have a white screen.
So before you share your screen, I think I can probably fix it. Before we can use the key index, we also have to tell the messages.map to give us access to the index right here. Do you have that?
Yep.
Okay, then share your screen.
Unless it's, yeah, I do.
Okay, I think your problem is actually somewhere else. Let me request remote. And I'm gonna just refresh here to clear out the console. And you've got too many re-renders in. Where did I see message input? Here we go. The above error occurred in the message input component. So let's look at message input. Right here, this set inputted text. When do we want to clear the input? When the message has been sent. So that send message, that clearing of the inputted text has to go inside the send message. And then if we refresh here, it should clear out all of your error messages. And if we send, you get nothing and you're good to go.
Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else? Okay. We are going to add one more feature. We're going to add two more features. One, I really like what Jen said of now we need the computer to send some messages to reply to. I would love to tell you that I have thought through an integration with ChatGPT and we're going to make it so AI is just going to answer us. But no, that would be really, really cool. Cannot pull that off. Well, that might be interesting to do. What we're going to do instead is just have the computer respond with just like some like, let me think about it and get back to you or something like that. So how do we do that? Well, in my code, when I go to message input, we're already doing the work to set the messages here, right? And clear out the text that got sent. What if I want to say, wait 3 seconds, then respond with something, right? So we can do that by saying, hey, set timeout. And that timeout, wait 3000 milliseconds. 3000 milliseconds is just 3 seconds. For whatever reason, JavaScript likes to work in milliseconds. Then in here, what do we do? Well, we still want to props.set messages. We still want to take all of the existing messages and spread them out into our new array. But this time we're going to add in a new object with the content of inputted text. And this time we're going to say sent is false. And I lied. We're not going to send in the inputted text. We're going to say, good message. This is the computer responding. And just like that, you can go back to our browser. I can send, hi there, computer. My message shows up, 1, 2, 3. Boo. What happened there? My message disappeared and the computer's message showed up. What's ending up happening here is this is running in a timeout. So it's not taking our new messages that we added in right here. It's kind of overriding it. So what we should do instead is say, let new messages equal this array. Then I'm going to set my messages to my new messages. And then I'm going to use my new messages and add in the computer's response down here. So I save that, I come over here, I refresh, I say, hi there, computer. I send it, we wait 3 seconds, and the computer's response shows up. Any questions about that code? Okay. We are going to go on break an entire 8 minutes early. So be back 7:15. When we come back, we are going to add timestamps. We're going to add the ability to edit a message, and we are going to get our blog project set up so we can hit the ground running tomorrow. Timestamps, edit messages, and blog project setup. Go on break, be back at 7:15. Jen, go ahead and share your screen. New messages is not defined because what I did is I kind of changed this up. I took this whole thing and I put it in a let new messages equal that, then set the messages to my new messages, which you were doing. And then down here, use the new messages and add in the new message as well. So go ahead and try that, see if that fixes it. You're good to go.
Is it, hold on. What, oh, okay, all right, thank you.
Yep. All right. If you're just joining us, sorry, the live share I accidentally ended on my side. So go ahead and open the live share with the new link that I just put in chat. With that said, I changed my mind. You guys can decide what you would like to add to the chat app. So timestamp's an idea, editing a message is an idea. We'll get to the setting up the blog project later. But what would you guys like to add to it? Timestamps what you want to do, if edits what you want to do, fine. But if you've got another idea, if you're like, okay, this is cool, but how would I go about bleh?
Can I be a real pain in the ass?
Yeah.
How do we delete specific messages?
Yeah.
Like
You want
if
to
you
dive
wanted,
into that?
if you wanted to just be like, well, let me delete the third message up from the right side, or how do you like target specific messages and delete
Yep.
one?
Let's do that. And then we can do timestamps next. Read receipts are a little tricky, Corwin, because we don't have like multiple devices. So we can't really like fake whether it's been read or not. So read receipts would be a little tricky. We can definitely do timestamps, but let's dive into delete instead of edit. Let's see what we would do to do that. So first thing that I think of when we need to delete something is we need like a delete button, right? We need to be able to hit delete and have it show up. So I'm going to go to my messages list, and I probably only want to be able to delete messages that I've sent, right? Because if it's received, sometimes we don't want to be able to delete those. So I'm going to go to my sent message, and I've got my message text right here. What if we throw another div in here? And in that div, I'll throw a span that says delete. I'm going to save that. I'm going to come over here. I get my word delete, but it's not exactly styled out the way that I want it to. So maybe let's add a style on this of color red and a font size of like 10 maybe. All right, here's my tiny little delete button. Maybe I will make it so the cursor is a pointer. And save that out. And now when I click on it, I've got a little cursor there. So now I can say, all right, on click of this, delete message. So how do I go about deleting a message? I'm going to say const delete message is equal to some function. And here I'm going to say if, and this is kind of a cool built-in function, window.confirm. Are you sure you want to delete this message? And if they confirm it, console, I screwed up the syntax there. Console.log delete message. Refresh, I click delete, says, are you sure you want to delete? If I hit cancel, nothing happens. But if I hit delete, I get delete message in my console. So I am good to go there. So now we got to figure out, okay, how do I actually go about deleting the message? Well, let's think about this. Our messages are up here, right? And we have access to this array in messages list because we pass it down via a prop. But what we don't have in messages list is the ability to set the messages. And we do have that down in message input. So up at my messages list, I need to throw in my set messages as well to get access to that in messages list. Does that make sense so far? You can give everyone a minute to catch up. Two changes that we made. One in sent message, we added in this div and this span with some styling. We threw an on click on it. And we added in this const delete message up here. We also in app.js said, hey, we need the ability in our messages list to set the messages. So because of that, we need to pass in set messages as a prop. Let me hide some of this out so you can see as much as possible. Anyone need a minute? Anyone have questions?
Is it actually deleting the message yet?
Oh God, no.
Okay, because I was like, wait a second, why isn't it working?
Okay, so from here, app.js is taking set messages and sending it into messages list. But we're down at sent message. So sent message doesn't have access to set messages. What does is messages list. So what we need to do is take set messages as the prop that's getting now sent into messages list, and also add that as a prop to my sent message. And my sent message also needs access to all of the current messages. So I'm taking these two props and kind of forwarding them on to sent message. The reason why I'm doing that is now I have access to messages and set messages from my sent message components props. So, and we can actually see that, which is kind of cool now. If we go to the components in React, in the React DevTools. Okay, maybe we can't because it's going to be a pain in the butt. All right, well, you think about what you did and I'll come back to you. Okay, in delete message, we already have the window.confirm. What do we want to do? We are going to take a copy of the existing messages by copying out the props.messages. So we're taking the messages from right here that we're forwarding on, and we're making a copy of them. Because we're making a copy of them, I can now make edits to this. So I want to delete item from array JavaScript. And of course, Stack Overflow is going to come to my answer and say that you can use splice. So what do we use with splice? We say splice whatever index that we want to delete and the number of items that we want to delete. That's going to be 1. So I'm going to say down here, existing messages dot splice, and I know I want to delete out 1 item, which is going to be the second number. What index do I want to delete? Crap. It's the index that I'm clicking the delete message button on. But I don't have access to index anywhere in sent message. Where do I have access to index? I have access to index all the way up here. So I also need to send in my index as a prop. Then I can say props.index is the item that I would like to delete. And then finally, I'm going to set my messages to the existing messages that I just spliced that out of. And I've got one error in my terminal. Set messages not defined, needs to be props. Dot set messages. I save that, I come over here. I send some message, I hit send. I wait 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I hit delete. I hit OK, and the message disappears. So I know I went fast on that. I'm going to give you 2 minutes here. If you want to catch up on your code, if you want to ask questions, that's totally fine. But at this point in the project, it's more important that you can read this code and say, do I understand what this code is doing? And could I write it on my own? So it doesn't really matter if you can get this code working in your own project. If it helps you understand it, definitely do that. But try and read through this code, especially on my live share, and say, do I understand this? Do I understand why we have to do it like this? If you don't, raise your hand. I do believe in stupid questions. I don't believe that any of you would ask a stupid question right now. So if you have a question, go ahead and ask it. And if you are lost and just sobbing helplessly into your keyboard, just shoot a message, I am lost. Except Brandy. Brandy's used all of her crying sessions up already. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Amberlynn.
Okay, I'm lost.
Okay.
I think I missed a step and I can't find where that step was.
Okay. Starting with delete, right? So let's do a commenting out run through of just the delete run through.
Sure.
Okay. So we start with our set messages, and we, number one, update messages list to have set messages prop so we can update the list from that component. So number one, we add set messages, which is coming from our set messages up here, so that this messages list can update the component. Then we go number two, add set messages to props list of component so we can use it. Number three is, I'm just going to reorder these so it's a little bit more clearer. Number three, add index and set messages props to sent message component so that the parent can forward on the ability to update the messages, and also so the message knows what index it is to delete itself. So two props, that's kind of number three and number four. So I'm gonna double that up. Then we go down to sent message. And because we're getting props here, we don't need to add the index and the set messages like we did up here, because they are already added into the props here. So that means that number five, add a delete button and link it to an on click. That's this whole div down here. It's a little bit of styling. Then we say number 6, make on click function. Number 7, confirm the user wants to delete the message. Number 8, make a copy of the messages sent in from the props from number 3. Number 9, delete the message that the delete button was clicked on from number 4. Number 4's prop. And then number 10, update the messages in state using set messages sent in from prop through messages list to get to the state from app.js. Did that process help at all? Or did you still not find what you're missing?
I found it. I was a misspelling. Thank you.
Did that help anyone else? Cool. You may have noticed I ended up using this like very verbose on click up here because I thought we were going to need to send some properties or some parameters to delete message, but I didn't actually end up needing that. So this can actually be simplified down to this, and it will do the exact same thing. We only need this syntax when we are going to send some parameters into delete message. Corwin, I'm not sure what you mean by they delete themselves.
They just don't want to be here anymore. They just delete themselves.
They've had an existential crisis and decide they no longer want to be part of your application.
Google's though. Here, I'll show you.
Go for it. Okay, I think this is a problem with, yeah, we changed some code pretty quickly to make that auto send work. Go ahead and switch to your code. And let me request remote. The problem is with the set timeout. So the set timeout is basically not using in message input. It's properly showing up your new message here. And it's setting that in, but then your set timeout is like, no, use the existing messages, don't use the new messages. So all we need to do is update this to new messages, and that will fix your problem.
Let me check. All right, that fixed it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And hopefully you're seeing a little bit of my debug process as well, right? Of, all right, that problem, where do we send a new message? All right, let me go find that file. Let me go find that function. Let me read through it and then go from there. Do we have any questions about delete before we move on to timestamps? Or is there anything else where someone's like really dying to see how we would implement a feature? Timestamps it is. Okay. So if I think about a timestamp, I'm thinking about, all right, our messages need to record the time that they are sent. So in order to do that, where do I send a message? Where do I keep track of that? Well, that's in message input. And what I'm going to do is instead of just putting in the content and the sent, I'm going to put in my timestamp. And my timestamp is going to be a new date. Date is something that is built into JavaScript and will automatically keep track of for us. So it will automatically put in the current date when I say new date. And I also want to do that for the computer generated response, right? So I'm going to say timestamp. That is going to be a new date. So I save that and I go, all right, now, how do I make the date show up, right? Because we're keeping track of this data. This is in state, but what do we know about state? Unless we're telling that state to render out somewhere, it won't show up. So I'm going to go to my messages list and I'm going to say, all right, in my sent message, where my delete button shows up, maybe next to the delete button, I'll throw in another span. And that span is going to show me my props dot timestamp. But we run into a problem. I can't just use a prop. I also have to make sure that in my sent message, I am sending in my timestamp as my message.timestamp. Where's my message.timestamp coming from? It's coming from my message, which is coming from my messages, which is coming from my props, which is coming from my props when I call the component, which is coming from my state. So I save that, I go back, and what do I get? If I say test and I hit send, I get a giant error. And it says, objects are not a valid React child, found object date. Well, date has all kinds of information in it. If I look at my messages list, where I threw that timestamp, the timestamp is like, what do you want me to show up right here? Do you want the time? Do you want the month? Do you want the day? Do you want the year? Do you want the time zone? Do you want the number of seconds? What do you want here? Well, we have to tell it, hey, go convert this to a 2 locale. I have to look it up. So JavaScript 2 locale string. And that's going to tell me it returns a string. So we're not dealing with an object anymore. It's kind of like parsing it. It's kind of actually like stringifying it, right? Take this object and give it to me in a friendly format. And so 2 locale string is going to give it to me in the date and time format. So that's what I want to do. So let me go back to my VS Code, 2 locale string. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And now when I go back to my code and refresh, I get nothing. So I'm going to go to my console, and my console is telling me cannot read properties of undefined. Like, what do you mean it's undefined? In my message input, I've got my messages, I've got my timestamp. Why is it undefined? So I need to do some debugging here. I'm going to go back to my messages list, and I am going to, before my return, console log out all of the props that I'm getting for this. So I go back to my Chrome, I refresh, I still have the error, but if I scroll up a little bit, I'm going to see all of this data coming through. and I'm going to pop one of those open, and my content is hello out there, and my index is coming through, my messages is coming through, my set messages is, but my timestamp is undefined. Okay, well, where is my hello out there? That's what I want to tune into, right? That's what I want to figure out. Where is that hello out there coming from? So I go back to my code, and I'm going to go to my app.js. Here is my hello out there. What is missing from this? A timestamp. And that timestamp is also missing from my message right here. So I save that, I go back, I look at Chrome, and now I have a very ugly timestamp, but my timestamp is there nonetheless. So let me go back. Let me style that a little bit. I'm going to go back to my messages list. Here is this. I'm going to throw some style on there. Let's make the color, I don't know, gray, and also make the font size 10. And take a look at that. And now my little timestamp is showing up. And we can add maybe a space and a space. Maybe we'll put it here. And now we got a little bar between the two of them. Okay. Take a minute, read through that code, see if you have questions.
Max,
Yes.
I know that with JavaScript, we can do like a class and target the CSS and everything, but with the span, why didn't you put that in CSS?
I could have. So React is more friendly with inline styles because we're using multiple files, right? So because we can break our stuff out into different components and the files aren't quite as long, we can inline styles a little bit more frequently in React than we would in just vanilla HTML and CSS. However, I totally could have put that into its own class and it would have worked exactly the same.
So it's easier to target that specific file by just doing inline rather than, I got you.
Correct. Yeah, because our files tend to be shorter in React because we can break them out into separate components. They aren't as long, and because of that, we tend to put the inline styles in React a little bit more frequently than we would in a giant HTML file that we have no way of breaking up. But if I wanted to, I could definitely add a class name of like timestamp on this and then go to my app.css and put in this exact same styling, and it would work exactly the same.
Okay, I don't want to say, okay, thank you. I'm going to actually say, I actually understand that. Thanks.
I like that response even more. Okay, little baby yeet, don't panic. Just a little bit push out of the nest. You don't have to turn it in. Gonna give you 5 minutes. Try and get the timestamp to show up on our received messages. Give you 5 minutes till 7:50. Try and get the timestamp to show up right here, like the timestamp is showing up over here. I will test this. Let me just send a new message. Yeah, the new message shows the correct time. So try and get the timestamp to show up under here. My computer is exposing me and showing the, I guess you've always seen that my local time up here, but my time is off by 3 hours because I'm on Pacific time. All right. Who flew when I pushed them out of the nest? Who just landed flat on their faces? All right, let's take a look at that. So what appears to be the simple way of doing this is saying, all right, how did we get timestamp to work in sent message? Couple things. We had to add another prop here called timestamp. We had to take the message which was coming in from the loop and add the timestamp into the prop value. We then went down to our props and added in our timestamp right here. So that would make sense if we just came in and added our timestamp here, right? But this is getting a little messy. Look, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different props we're sending in here. What if instead of sending in the timestamp, I'm going to send in the whole message? Because the message contains both the content and the timestamp. So I'm going to go ahead and delete out my content prop. Why? Because the message contains the content and the timestamp. So I'm going to go down and I'm going to change this. Instead of getting the content, I'm going to get the whole message. Then I can use the message.content. Now I go back over because I just did some refactoring and I want to make sure, hey, my message is still showing up. It is. So I can go grab my styling here, go down and beneath the message text, throw in my div. And instead of looking at the props timestamp, I want to pull in my message.timestamp. So go ahead and save that, come over here, and now my timestamp shows up. If you think that your way should have worked and isn't working, go ahead and raise your hand. Let's share your screen and see what your approach was and how we can fix it. Don't be shy. No one wants to share their screen, how they tried to do it?
I attempted the first way you did it by putting the timestamp in the received message, but I didn't get it to work, so I was stuck on that part.
You want to share a screen and we can look at it?
I already changed.
Oh, okay, no biggie.
Yeah.
So normally when we do that, kind of a 3-step process. One, we have to add the prop right up here, right? We have to say timestamp equals message.timestamp. That's sending the prop in. Number 2, we've got to tell it, hey, at received message, you're not only going to get the content, you're also going to get the timestamp as a prop. And then number 3 is making sure that you're using the timestamp properly down here as a span or a div or whatever in the curly braces. Okay. I am out of project ideas for this. Does anyone have something that they would like to see how I implement in this project? Corin, go ahead and share screen.
So as you can see, I have this beautiful white screen.
Okay. Head over to your console. Your console is probably going to show you an error message. And it says, cannot read properties of undefined reading content on messages list line 73. So let's go ahead and look at 73. Okay, so here it is trying to look at the message content. So where is message coming from? Message is coming from your props of received message. Where do we use received message? received message is used up here, but it's not sending in a message, it's sending in the content and the timestamp. So what we can do instead is just send in the message, and that whole message will have all of the information you need in it. See if that fixes it. Cool.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Any other questions? All right. I am going to,
Okay.
oh, go ahead, Rain.
Would it be too much to ask, like, how would we visualize, like, maybe a username for who's sending the messages, or like a block feature or something, or is that just?
Oh, I like that username feature. And Brandy, I saw your yours for reactions as well. Just thinking through how to implement that a little bit. Let me think about usernames. So yeah, let's do usernames, because that's one I think we can keep track of. So I'm thinking about usernames, and this is a really important thing of whenever we are thinking about a new feature, we want to visualize it, and we want to say like, hey, can we explain this before we try to build it in the code, right? That's why wireframing is so important. So what I'm thinking about is what there would be some kind of button, right, that says set username, and you could click on that and type in your username and hit save, and then your name would show up above every message. And then over here, because it was sent by the computer, it should say like computer above it, right? So let's practice with that, because that's going to be state, and that's going to be a couple things. So I'm going to head back to my header. And in my header, underneath the H1, I'm going to add in a button. And it is going to have a class name of BTN and BTN primary. And it's going to say set username. And we're going to take a look at that. That shows up right there. Not the cleanest interface, but let's roll with that. So I'm going to say on click equals set username. Interrupt me at any point. Here, I'm going to say set username is going to say const typed in name equals window.prompt. What would you like your username to be? And we're just going to console log out the typed in name. So I click set username, I type in Max, and I hit OK. And what do I see in my browser? I see Max come out. So what's the goal from here? I want to make it so that my name shows up above every message. The problem is those messages happen up in messages list. I am in header. So what 2 steps do I need to do to get the information from header to messages list?
Export? No. Or
Allie had the same idea. It's not quite export. How do we send information from one component to another? Props. Okay, so props is one of the things we need to do. And this is data that's showing to the end user. So what other concept do we need? State. So where are we going to do the state? We can't do the state in header because then there's no way to send it to messages list. So we have to go up to the shared parent component What do you mean? Can you have your screen back, Jen?
It's only showing me your page.
Oh. God damn live share.
I have no idea how the hell it did that, but I almost cried because I was like, those aren't my colors.
You've been relinquished. Just refresh and you should be back. I need to go fix that. Sorry. Okay. I need to put the state up in app so that both header and messages list have access to it. So I'm going to say I've already imported my use state, so I don't need to do it again. I'm going to say const username and set username equals a use state. And the username is going to start out empty. It's going to start out as nothing. But I need my header to have the ability to set my username. So I pass that into the header as a prop. I then go to my header and I tell my header, hey, you are going to get set username as a prop. And what I would like you to do is set the username to whatever the typed in name is from the window.prompt. Then I would like in app.js for my messages list to get access to the username. Messages list is then going to take that username and send it down to my sent messages. Finally, my messages list is going to send it down to sent messages via a prop, which means down here, because it's in my props, I can make it show up as my username. So we read our error message here, and it says identifier set username has already been declared. Like, what you talking about, Willis? My set username is right here. That's a prop. What's the problem? Set username is also what my on-click is. So my on-click and my prop are clashing. I need to fix that. So I'm going to change this one to update username and set this one to update username. And now got another error in 53. 53, I'm using username, but really, where's my username coming from? It's coming from my props. So I got to say props.username here. Okay, refresh. Shows up. I hit set username. I say whatever I want my username to be, and I hit OK. And Bruce Willis shows up. And I come down and I type in ABC and I hit send, and now my username shows up there. All right, let's follow that trace through everything. Put this down, get this out of the way, get my files split, my header, my messages list. Let me do it like this. Okay. We start out with a use state in app.js. It starts out as nothing, but this set username function, we pass into the header component. Header comes down and gets set username from right here. Then we prompt the user. We take whatever name they've typed in, and we set that typed in name to set username, which is going to flow all the way back through here to here, and update username right here. Then we take that username and we send it down into messages list. So messages list gets my username right here. Username as a prop then gets sent into my sent message as a new username prop. We then go down to sent message, and because sent message is using props, we can reference the username using the props. Rain, that is probably not as fully functional or featured and as you would imagine for a username, but hopefully that gives you an example of passing state around via props. Helpful?
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, let's do one more. We could either do reactions to a message, or we could do something else if you guys have other ideas. Kenny.
Yeah, I tried to set the username and it says set username is not a function.
Okay, so check to make sure that you've got your use state up here and that on your header, you've passed in this prop set username right here.
Yeah, I did that.
And then in header, did you add this set username right here?
Yeah.
Okay, then I'm out of idea. Share your screen.
Let me see. But
Set username, set username. Well, that looks good. Let me look at your header. Set username, update username, update. Let me see where the error is.
the yeah, the error. Like let's say that'll work at first when you type in, obviously. Let's say I click enter, it just says that.
Oh, capital N for username in the header.js file.
Capital N.
And then you also have to update it on line 11
Line 11.
in header.js.
Heck. That's annoying. What did I do wrong?
You want to share your code and I can check it. Crystal remote. Okay, so set username in app.js. You did as a capital N here. So we have to match it in here with a capital N here. And then you already have the capital N there. So that should fix it.
Cool. Let me see. Yeah. All right, it fixed it.
Cool.
Thanks.
All right, Palash, I like your idea, but we've got a army forming for people who want reactions. So I'm going to attempt to do reactions and go from there. This is where the train goes off the rails because your brains are already fried, but let me see what I can do in 20 minutes with reactions. So like messages list, where we delete a message, we also need the ability to react to a message. So I'm going to throw in another span that says react, and let's style that. Actually, let's use range question. Let's add a class name to that of like react link. And then I'm going to throw some spacing between that and take a look at that in the browser. And we get a little React link. Although I'm realizing you would never react to your own message, would you? You would react to a message that got sent to you, not a message that you had sent. So I'm going to move this. I'm going to take this out of the sent message, and I'm going to put that only down in the received message. Save that. Okay, so we got a little React. I'm going to head to my app.css and say React link. And I'm going to say font size is going to be 10, and my color is going to be blue. And because I put that class name on it, when I take a look in the browser, I get my React there. And this probably needs like a PX or a PT on it. There we go. Okay, so my little reacting is there. Let's throw a cursor on that of pointer. And we can say on click react to message, const react to message is going to be a const reaction emoji equals a window dot prompt. What is your reaction? And we can say if reaction emoji dot length is not equal to 1, then window dot alert, that is too long of a reaction. Else, we want to update this message with a reaction. So I'm just going to console log out my reaction emoji and see if this is working. At this point in the night, I don't recommend following along. I mean, if you really want to, you can. But at this point, I think it's just good to see the react and let it kind of soak in. But if you want to follow along, you totally can. Okay, in here, I'm going to click on react. It says, what is your reaction? And if I type in blah, it should say that's too long of a reaction and do nothing. But if I hit react and pick my emoji picker and grab something and hit OK, I expected that to work.
Is that because like actually when you type in emojis like colon, blah, colon, that's feeding in?
That's how Slack does it. That's not how Unicode works.
Okay.
That's a good guess though. I'm curious to see. It is logging out. What's the length of an emoji? We're all learning something new here.
Aren't they different? Like for a smiley face, you have to press the colon and then capital 0. So wouldn't that be 2? Aren't they all like coded into what the picture is?
It's supposed to be. It's supposed to be one Unicode character, but I'm surprised that the length is coming out. I'm just curious here now. What happens if I stringify the reaction emoji? That looks like one character to me. I don't know. For some reason, it's two. I'm going to have to do some research into that. Make sure that works now. Yeah, there's not a space on either side of that. Oh, for some reason, an emoji is two characters in JavaScript. So I'm going to have to look into why that is. But anyway, I have my received message. I've prompted them for their reaction. I've added a span. That's an on click that's reacting to the message. Reacting to the message is prompting them. It's taking that. Now we got to do something with that. Well, again, we need to know what message we're working on here. And then we need to update that message to store the reactions to it. So I'm going to go back to my props. And in my received message, I need to pass in two things. One, the index of the message, for the same reason we needed index for the delete, right? We need to know what message we're updating. And then we also need to pass in set messages so that we can update the message that we're working on. Then we're going to go back down to the received message. We're going to tell it that it's going to get index and the ability to set the messages. And then we are going to say, if the emoji is the proper length, updated messages equals a copy of the current messages. I'm realizing I did not pass down via a prop. So I have to say the current messages are also getting passed in here. Okay, now I can say the updated messages at the current index that we're working on is going to have a reaction of whatever the reaction emoji is. Then I'm going to set the messages to our updated messages. I know that was a lot, but take a step back. Where else did we do a flow like this? We did a flow like this with our delete. If we take a look at our delete message, we take a copy of our messages, we take that, we make the updates to it, then we take that updated array and set it back into state. So we're going to do the same thing down here. We take a copy of our messages, we make whatever reaction that we want to it, and then we update those messages here. So the last thing we need to do is in this react, we're going to put a colon and we're going to say, hey, message dot reaction. I come back over here, I refresh, click react. I do my little devil face because why not? And I hit OK. And my little devil face shows up. I can send a new message and wait 3 seconds and my response shows up. And for this one, I can do a crazy face and hit OK, and that will show up. Tiny, but show up. Any questions on this code? Hopefully this is inspirational to see how quickly we can build features in React and not scary that, oh my God, you just went so fast, I don't understand any of that. That was certainly not the intention, but hopefully it gives you an idea of, hey, this is all state, this is all functions, this is all props, it's all part of the process. I will entertain Plosh's idea of how do we change the color of the messages. But if you have had enough of React, if you are just ready to start the blog project tomorrow, if you would like this chat application to go die, you can sign off now. Or if you are interested in seeing how we're going to make dynamic colors work, you can stick around and I will show you that. So last thing I'm going to do, I am going to head to my app.js. I'm going to say const message color and set message color is use state, and it's going to start out as blue. I'm going to say set message color is getting passed into my header. My header is going to get the set message color. And we are going to do this whole thing, except it's going to be set color and update color. And this is going to do all of the same stuff. What would you like your color to be? And set the message color based off of the typed in color. I know I'm going fast through all of this. Any questions on that so far? I basically just made it so when you hit set color, you can type in something like green. And then what we need to do is in app, in the messages list, we're going to pass down message color as message color. Messages list is going to get message color, and it's going to send that to the received message. And then in the received message, we are going to style this with the background of the message color, which comes in as a prop. So the only thing that you are probably interested in is this, but that does show you how you can do it up at a level, set up the state, pass it down via props, and then style it here.
Yeah, I was wondering like if you were going to do that JavaScript CSS style sheet or add a class list, like declare a class list in CSS and then apply it.
The only way to do it dynamically based off of a value in state is to do it via style.
Okay.
An inline style tag.
Gotcha.
You could do something dynamically where you could say, you could do something like this. You could say, if the message color is equal to pink, then add in the class pink, otherwise use received message. And what that would allow you to do is to say, set color is going to be gray. If I type in anything else, it will keep it gray. But if I type in pink, it will use the value that I typed in.
So in case of like websites that have image sliders and all, like do they apply all that styling of say all those CSS animations into the inline style?
If it's in React, yes, they would.
Okay. Really?
Yeah, this isn't a great example though. But yes, it is, and that actually answers another question of Rain's of like, well, why is it okay to do inline styles here when it's not in regular HTML? Because React unlocks that dynamic feature so that you can tie things in state and user interactions to your styling.
Gotcha. So how will we apply it to, say, all the images that we are probably pulling in from an API?
Because the component, because that image would probably be its own component or in a component, you would reuse that component over and over again, and that's what would allow you to apply the dynamic styling.
Gotcha. Are we gonna do something like that?
Yes, with blog posts either tomorrow or next week. We're going to make a card for the blog post, and then that's its own component. So we style it all, and then we reuse that component over and over again. So the same goes kind of for this, right? Like we change all of the received messages here. So if I send, you know, message and another message and, you know, something, when I hit set color here and change it to whatever, it's going to update it on all of the messages, even though I only have it in one style tag, because that component is getting reused.
Understood. Thank you.
Jen, what's up?
Why did it take over the color on? Sorry, why did it take over the color of my received messages? Like I know on line 21 in app.js, I can change it to use state is purple or whatever, but I know in app CSS, I have it as a different color and it kind of like took over that.
Because inline styles will always override whatever the class name is.
Okay, so can I just, how do I fix that and keep it the color I did in CSS? Do I just take out the purple?
If you, yes, if you take this out, it will default back to whatever color you started with.
Okay, cool. So I just leave it empty.
Yes.
All right, awesome. Thank you.
Rain, fun fact, you just shared a picture of an LED bulb. That's actually not an incandescent bulb. All of those little strips, they figured out how to put LEDs on them.
Oh my goodness, that is so funny.
Like an old school incandescent actually has to have like the two wires with the little thin filament between the two of them. Sorry, I'm a little bit of a lighting nerd. I did it in college for like stage shows and stuff like that. So I think LEDs are fascinating.
Thank you. Your study, I'm sorry, I was chewing my dinner, but your study just teaching me new things. This is crazy.
All right, I've probably fried your brains. You deserve 2 minutes back of your life. Hopefully this gives you an idea of what's possible in React, how quickly we can build different features, and how really whatever you dream of can be solved. Tomorrow we will start the blog project. We will try and knock that out in 2 days. If we can get that done on Thursday and Monday, Tuesday we can focus in on how do we convert existing projects into React, as well as a kind of an Ask Me Anything session as well, where you can throw out ideas, we can build them. We will have on Tuesday, we have Laura coming in and answering any questions that you guys have about networking. If you have any business card designs, feel free to send them over to me and I will review them. Other than that, have an awesome evening. I'll stick around for a couple minutes in case there are any questions. But other than that, I will see y'all on Thursday. See you all tomorrow.